A Cowboys insider has hinted at the future moves for the team. It's some pretty obvious stuff, but one specific move that the Dallas Cowboys will be looking into making in the future, and we got to break it all down. What's up, guys? I'm Matt Long. Welcome to Cowboys Football 365. If you're a Dallas Cowboy fan, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out a ton, and we're getting so close to my goal of 1,000 subscribers. But let's jump right into the news for today. Our insider, Jon Machota, a writer for The Athletic, was talking to some people in the Cowboys organization today, put out an article about some of the vibes and the things that he sees inside the organization. Let's start it off with a quote from Stephen Jones, who said, "We've got to get an identity on the defensive side of the football," Cowboys executive vice president Stephen Jones said recently on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas. "I don't think we ever established what we were as a defense. We weren't a team that created turnovers. We didn't get the ball. We gave up a lot of explosive plays. At times, it felt like we were stopping the run, but we just got a lot of work to do on that side of the ball. I think everyone knows that. We'll go all in." Now, Cowboy fans love to hear that we're going all in on the defense, but we knew that that was going to be what this offseason was all going to be about. When you are a defense that ranks bottom 5 in points allowed per game and yards allowed per game, it's obvious that you have to go out and address the defense. You have to go out, spend draft picks, spend free agent money, re-sign guys. You got to go out and make sure this defense actually puts our team in a position where the defense doesn't have to carry anything, but Dak Precott has been running up the score. George Pickens had a phenomenal year. Ceedee Lamb is always going to be great. Jake Ferguson is another great addition to this offense. Those guys are putting up a ton of points. We need a defense that isn't just going to lose the game for us every single week. Now, when it comes to our defense, looking at our depth chart, the good thing, if you can call this a good thing, about needing every single level of the defense other than interior off defensive linemen is whenever you're on the board in the draft, there's going to be value because there are just so many needs that we have on defense. But there is one move in particular that our insider here, Jon Machota, is seeing happening in the future for the Cowboys. He writes, "Clowney seems like a decent bet to be on the in line, but he's an unrestricted free agent and probably made himself some money with how he played this past season. The Dallas Cowboys have been very open about wanting the soon-to-be 33-year-old back next season. Fowler, Williams, and Turner could easily have been on the outline, but there's probably a dollar amount where any one of them could be back. That's just because of how thin Dallas is at that position. Another spot where it wouldn't surprise me to see the Cowboys using one of their first round picks." Jon Machota is, of course, talking about our edge rushing defenders. Jadeveon Clowney was with us this season, and despite him being 32 years old, a pretty old guy, he still put up a pretty productive season, especially for a player who was on the contract that he was on. 8.5 sacks this year, which was a big uptick from 2024 when Clowney was with his hometown Panthers, putting up 5.5 sacks per game, but not as good as 2023 with the Baltimore Ravens at 9.5 sacks per game. But when you're the number one pass rusher on your team, the offensive game plan is always going to be planned against stopping you and making sure you don't mess up the offensive game plan. So when Jadeveon Clowney is our number one pass rusher, it is just that much harder for him because other offenses will be game planning around him. But now Jon Machota is telling us that it feels like Jadeveon Clowney will be being re-signed by the Dallas Cowboys, even though in February he is going to be turning 32 years old. Looking at the contract that we had him on this past season, he signed a 1-year, $3.45 million contract. He may be making a little bit more than that because this was a successful season. The way I see it with these older players, you don't really have to worry about longevity or if they fall off. If you do one specific or two things. One, make sure you only sign him to a 1-year deal. So if he falls off, you don't have to worry about him for the future. Jadeveon Clowney may not like that because how these contract negotiations work, the players always want to negotiate long-term stability, but the way you get Jadeveon Clowney to agree to it only being a 1-year contract is you fully guarantee the contract. So it's a give and take. Fully guaranteeing the contract is bad for the organization, but the amount of years on the contract is good for the organization. So both sides are ceding a little bit there, and they are able to come to an agreement on a way where Jadeveon Clowney can be an edge rusher for the Dallas Cowboys next year. Machota mentioned it in the article. I don't believe I put it in this video, but we want to see Donovan Ezeraku, the 2nd-round pick in 2025 out of Boston College. We want to see him step up in the future at that edge rusher position, but we have to remember the draft is coming up as well. We have 2 first-round picks, and just like Jon Machota said in this, article, we know we want to look at this defensive lineman class. Now, this 2026 draft class, not the strongest thing in the world, but there are going to be edge rushers that will be available at our first draft pick. So we're sitting there at 12 overall. I have a picture of David Bailey from Texas Tech. This is the name that I'm hearing mocked most of the Dallas Cowboys, although you never know. Just imagine this picture as whoever your favorite edge rusher is in the class, whether it's David Bailey, Keldrick Falk, Orville Reese, whoever your favorite edge rusher is, other than Ruben Bain. Ruben Bain, there's a 0% chance that he is available at our draft pick. But so imagine your second favorite edge rusher outside of Ruben Bain. But whoever the edge rusher is that is the best available at 12, it is highly likely that the Cowboys are going to be spending our first-round pick on that player. I really like the idea that we talked about yesterday, where the Cowboys go out and spend both first-round picks on defensive ends, because we need pass rush in a really bad way. And as described in this article, we need pretty much everything on defense other than run defenders. But if you could pair the run defenders that we already have, who are doing a pretty good job with Kenny Clark, with Quinnen Williams, if you can put some pass rush on the outside. Remember, Quinnen Williams, he's still a very solid pass rusher from the interior. He's not going to run up the sack production of the guys on the outside, because that's not what defensive tackles do unless you're named Aaron Donald. But Quinnen Williams can still rush from the inside. Pairing him with 1 or 2 first-round pick edges would be an amazing way to turn this defense up. Next season, you have to imagine Deron Bland will be back healthy. Maybe our 3rd-round pick out of Eastern Carolina in 2025, Siobhan Revel, finds a way to step up and make a difference in that secondary. And if we are able to rush the passer at a more successful rate, then our secondary won't be hung out to dry as long, and they are going to have more opportunities to maybe they can know the pass is going to come out faster, so they will be able to jump routes, and we can get back into kind of a feeling of where we were a couple of years ago, when either that year when Deron Bland had a ton of pick sixes, when Trevon Diggs had a ton of pick sixes. We can see it. The difference is there's no Micah Parsons this season to scare quarterbacks into throwing the football quickly. We need to replace that sack production. But that's what I got for this video. If you stuck around this long, I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video all the way through. Please hit that like button if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel, and go Cowboys.